Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Leading Life Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Zook, and here is where we talk about leadership, personal development, and living our very best lives. Here we go. All right, on today's episode right now, 5 unspoken truths teams aren't telling their leaders. Yeah, you are listening to the Leading Life Podcast because this is where we discuss developing you into a stronger and more impactful leader. I want to give you the tools to help you be stronger at leading, the psychology behind it, and give you that leadership edge to be more effective at whatever you do. And this is all aspects of our life, helping you and others with courage, clarity, and care, and achieve everything we all deserve. This podcast is about challenging how each of us can step up to the plate and be our best selves. All right, so let's dive in. Great topic today. What if I told you that your team isn't always saying what they're really thinking? Yeah. And what if those unspoken thoughts are the key to whether they stay, grow, or leave? Yeah, it's true. I've seen this over all my years of leadership, and I want to discuss each one of these with you, and we're going to teach you at the end how to overcome these very issues that could be hurting your teams. And here are some of the things they might be saying. Number 1, I don't feel seen, or I don't feel valued. Yeah, a workplace study found that 43% of employees don't feel valued by their employer, with a similar 35% believing their employer doesn't recognize their contributions at all. And there was a recent Harvard Business Review study last July that showed that over half of its respondents, 57.1%, felt only somewhat or not at all valued. Last year, in 2024, Yahoo Finance reported 44% of employees felt unacknowledged or neutral regarding their employer's address of their contributions. So, if you want a more engaged employee, then make sure you engage with them. Make sure you let them know how valued they are. And the main thing I want you to remember is don't forget about your steady Eddies and Betties, because they are the ones that have been going day in and day out for your business, working hard, doing what they need to do, and maybe they're not always landing the big deal or they're in the spotlight, but these are the players that really make our businesses run. And over the years, I've noticed that these are the ones that feel the most neglected. And some simple psychology as to why this is a threat to your leadership is that these people feel overlooked, and that reduces the dopamine, which is our brain's reward chemical. So without recognition, employees stop associating effort with reward, and that leads to disengagement, quiet quitting, or even worse, burnout. Okay, number 2, I wish I knew where I stood. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that over the years, and you should absolutely, as a leader, have no one on your team where there is a mystery about where they stand, because a lack of specific feedback creates doubt amongst workers. We know this. I know you as a leader have at some point in your career felt like you didn't know where you stood. And how did that make you feel? So then ask yourself, why is it okay for a single member that's working for you, single team member working for you, to feel in the dark? Remember, silence is not neutral. It's interpreted as negative. So psychologically, our brains crave clarity and predictability. When expectations, performance, and our future aren't clear, the amygdala in our brain interprets it as a threat. And this raises anxiety and cortisol, which lowers focus and motivation. So when people don't know if they're doing well or they're not doing well enough, employees don't get that dopamine reward hit from progress recognition. They feel like they're working in a vacuum, which ultimately will kill their drive and their creativity. Okay, number 3, I want to grow, but I don't know how. Yeah, so quite honestly, this is probably the one thing that I hear the most in people is they want to grow and develop. And no one goes to work and says, hey, I just want to make $17 an hour for the rest of my life. But the majority of people don't know how to go about it. They don't know how to get beyond that. And like I've said endless times on this podcast, this is our number 1 job as a leader. It is to help our people grow and put together a development plan for them to open the doors for their future. Someone had to come along and open the doors for you. So you, in return as a leader, owe it to them to do the same. And I don't even know why this is even a discussion. The other thing I don't understand about this is why don't we have quarterly, 6-month, and 9-month reviews before the annual review? It's funny because my phone rings a lot. Especially after review time. And people are like, what the heck? I didn't even expect this. I didn't even know what was going on. I didn't even know if I was performing the wrong way or not good enough. And they had hoped for something so much better. So do yourself a favor and don't wait until the end of the year to have a conversation that you know you need to have. And so when you give an annual review or you start delivering feedback, there should be zero surprises. People need to know where they stand. So maybe you have that one person on your team that's more quiet or more withdrawn. Immediately, you kind of think, well, maybe they don't want to grow. Be very cautious of that thinking because you couldn't be further off from the truth. 99% of people want to grow and get to the next step. Some of them may not voice their desire so, but investigate a little more as a leader. Stay curious, ask questions, take the time to talk to everybody and have a growth conversation no matter what. If someone says, hey, I want to be a cashier for the rest of my life, until they put me in the grave, okay, that's fine. But you at least owe it to them to paint the picture of opportunities beyond just being a cashier. And there's nothing wrong with being a cashier. Let me say that. But a lot of them don't believe in themselves that they can do more. And that's the key there. You as a leader need to break that open and get them to see a compelling future. Everybody deserves that. So in that episode where I was talking about being the hero in somebody's story, that ladders up to this really well. I was using the example of, the star performer being interviewed, like the star athlete. They scored the game-winning goal and they become emotional when the subject of their coach becomes up because their coach was not just the person that helped them get better at playing the sport and win that shot. Their coach showed them their abilities. Their coach helped them uncover their desire to win. Their coach set up a whole new perspective of life for them. And that's the opportunity we have as leaders. Growth is fuel for our brains. Don't forget that. That's the psychological standpoint you want to consider with this. Without it, we default to survival mode rather than developmental mode. Clear pathways, coaching, stretch opportunities. These keep people inspired and engaged. Growth triggers dopamine, the reward chemical. Yeah, if employees can't see the next step for themselves, they lose that reward cycle and motivation ultimately fades. So yeah, number 4, I don't always feel safe to speak up. Yeah, I get pretty passionate about this topic because I've seen this happen in corporations where there's an underlying issue that just snowballs and snowballs and eventually it grows so big it blows up the business itself. We've seen it happen. And I'm going to take you back to that favorite quote of mine from Sam Walton, the guy who built the Walmart empire. If you want to know what's going on in your store, then spend time talking to the guys that sweep the floor every night. They know more that's happening with your business than upper management does. So what I want you to do here is you have to encourage open dialogue and feedback. And you also have to be intuitive to what's happening. So let's say you have a machinery issue in your plant, right? You own this physical plant and one of your machines that produces the goods in your factory isn't fully working properly. And you guys keep putting Band-Aids on it because somebody's ego or person at the top who put the machine together will be offended. Well, you're hurting quality production, though, ultimately, because someone's afraid to say what needs to be said. And personally, as leaders, we should rather risk offense than hurt the quality of the work we do. Someone has to be the one to be that voice. And we can dig a little deeper. Let's talk about Google's Project Aristotle, which was a 2012 research initiative to identify the factors of effective teams. So they studied hundreds of Google's own teams. And that study found that the most crucial element for team success was psychological safety, a state where team members felt safe to take interpersonal risks and be vulnerable without fear of negative consequences. Project Aristotle also identified other key factors, including dependability, structure, clarity, meaning, and impact. But ultimately, it found that how a team interacts and the culture they create are more important than just specific individuals or their skills. So when people feel unsafe, the amygdala triggers a fight or flight or freeze even response. Our stress hormones like cortisol rise. It makes us harder for us to think clearly, focus, collaborate. So make sure you've got that open space where people feel safe to speak up, because often their ideas or their warnings about what's happening will ultimately make your business better. All right, last but not least, number 5, and I get a little bit passionate about this. I could probably do a whole episode on this, though I think I did. But why are we making things so complicated? I hear this one a lot. Not the most, but a lot. And leaders sometimes underestimate the passion and commitment people bring. And it also diminishes the returns by making things way more complicated than they need to be. So I know on another episode I was talking about a great example of Herman Cain, right? So he took over Godfather's Pizza back in the 80s. And at that point, Godfather's Pizza was bleeding money. So he saw right away that they had drifted away from the very item they were most famous for on their menu, square pizza. So he looked at the menu and there was all this other stuff like calzone this, pasta that, meatball sub sandwich, blah, blah, blah. And he said, hey, we're going to get rid of all of that and we're going to sell the one thing we're famous for, square pizza. Everybody thought he was out of his mind. But you know what? He did just that. He brought Godfather's Pizza back from the brink of bankruptcy, and they stopped hemorrhaging money, and they became more successful than ever. Simplify things. Less is more. Stop the vanity projects. Stop adding binders. Stop asking people to do things that don't line up with the heart of the business. If you own a taco truck, then you sell tacos. That's what you do, and you sell the heck out of them better than anyone else. You don't start making pasta on the side. You can, but you're taken away from what you originally set out to do and what you're famous for. Here's another great example, I think, of simplicity, when I think of simplicity, the Target register system. So when you go into a Target store and you purchase goods, have you noticed how quick and simple it is for them to ring you up, or even in self-checkout by yourself? There's no fluff. There's no fooling around. It's like beep, 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 and you're done, and you're walking out. They have updated this register system probably 3 or 4 times since I've been inside their stores, and it is simpler every time. The touch screen is bigger. You can swipe your credit card faster, pay with your app. Even when you buy fruit or produce, it rings that up way quicker than before, and you don't have to log in and what fruit it is and how much it weighs and what's the bag and all that stuff. They engineered it so it's fast and effective. And Target is gone so far that, let's say the power goes out in the building, they can still run the register and ring people up. So that's simplifying the process. People are checking out quicker, faster, and happier. I mean, that's ultimately what everything in our society is. Our attention is 3 seconds, and we want things quick. So when we think about efficiency at our business, how do we make it easier for the associates working and faster and more efficient for the guests that are buying our goods and services? Okay, so that's the 5. Well, let's get into this a little bit more. So let this be your leadership edge for the episode. So back to number 1. Someone doesn't feel valued. You can fix this by start with recognizing team members on the regular, either in conference calls, meetings, or in person. I hear some leaders say, well, I'm not really a cheerleader. Well, you need to learn to be, because recognition is crucial just to begin with. There's absolutely nothing complicated here. Making people feel valued is easy. So all you've got to know is the people on your workforce, know their names, what are their drivers, and dig into what they're doing right and make sure you acknowledge it. It's really that simple. People need to feel that their job is important, and it helps the company deliver their overall goal. So make sure you let them know how much they matter. Simple as that. Number 2, if someone doesn't know where they stand, like we talked about, schedule time to have that one-on-one. Trust me, it's not good to put off a tough conversation. The longer you do, the worse it's going to get. So make sure your team is crystal clear on where they are. Trust me, one of the things that I hear the most is people saying, I just don't know where I stand with my boss. And sure, it's on them to some responsibility, but ultimately this falls a lot on you, that you have failed to let them know where they are and what they need to be working on. Keep it simple and schedule those one-on-ones. Even if it's a phone call or a FaceTime or whatever, get with your people and make sure you align on where they are and what they need to do. Number 3, if they want developmental opportunities and you don't know how to get started, it's time to have another one-on-one conversation similar to the last step, where you discuss what they need to work on and what you think will help prepare them for the next step. I was talking to this great guy that works at a local Mitsubishi plant the other day, and it's funny because he was like, oh, we have this thing called an IDP. And I'm like, yeah, we have the same thing here. And I bet every company does, but I wonder how many people really have a living and breathing individual development plan, right? That's what IDP stands for. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. Just plot where they are and what skills and competencies they can work on to get to the next thing. It's that simple. All right, number 4, we talked about if they don't feel safe. So you can start with just listening to your people. When someone shares an idea, respond with curiosity first, not judgment. Your people are thinking these things whether you ask or not. The best leaders create space for those truths to surface, and then they act. Create more opportunities for them to be able to give feedback, especially anonymously. So instead of focusing on growth or excellence, employees put their energy into avoiding blame, conflict, or attention when they're not heard. Their mindset shifts from thriving to just surviving. Number 5, we talked about stop making things more complicated. Keep things simple and on track with what your mission is. Connect their work to the bigger mission regularly. Help them see their impact. Cut out the fluff and keep your worker focused on simplicity. The brain has limited working memory. So when steps are too many or unclear, people experience decision fatigue. This creates stress, confusion, and more mistakes. The brain seeks shortcuts to reduce effort. And there's a deeper issue. Employees in these kinds of situations start to ignore rules. They start to cut corners, or they invent their own methods, which can create inconsistency or risk. So that's my episode. I want to ask you this. Which one of these do you think your team might be feeling right now? And how will you bring it into the open this coming week? All right. I hope that inspired some thought around how we can lead on a higher level and break through for our people better. So if you like what you're hearing on the Leading Life podcast, please leave me a rating and review. Share this episode with friends, coworkers, and family members. Lastly, I want you to lead strong, be awesome you, and most importantly, be the hero in somebody's story. All right. Until the next episode, talk to you soon. Bye.